Please give it up for Mr. Kinky Friedman.
Thank you very much. Thank you, folks. You know, if you fail at something long enough, you become a legend. And that's pretty much what's happened to me. I have about a 4.5 hour presentation prepared for you. No, it needs to be that long because you'll see why towards the end of it. No, I'll keep my remarks brief. I'm 69 years old, though I read at the 71-year-old level. And I've got my last will and testament all worked out. When I die, I am to be cremated, and the ashes are to be thrown in Rick Perry's hair. Now, speaking of Rick, I was showing some friends of mine around Austin recently, and one of them said, "Hey, that's a beautiful statue of Rick Perry you all put up there." And I said, "That is Rick Perry." By the way, the statue of Willie it's not a bad statue, but they paid a thin sock wearing Yankee a lot of money to do that statue, and it looks exactly like Sean Connery. You take a look at it when you're passing that at downtown Austin. Speaking of Willie gave me some great advice before I got into politics, and it served me so well in politics as in life. And what Willie said was, if you're going to have sex with an animal, always make it a horse. Because that way, if things don't work out, at least you know you've got a ride home. Now, we're just completing a tour of Europe. This is also Willie's idea, but it's a damn good one. He said, never take a day off. Do 35 consecutive shows, which I wound up doing in 7 countries. And you will start running on pure adrenaline, and you'll hear Hank Williams speaking to you, and Lenny Bruce, and all that kind of thing. And it happened. And you get really raw and pure. And I even did, I did about 12 shows in Norway and Sweden, and all through England, Ireland, Scotland, and even a show in Germany. And of course, as you may know, the Germans are my second favorite people. And my first is everybody else. But at any rate, I can tell you that Willie, of course, is I myself do not smoke pot very much. I think the recreational side of it is not the important thing. Now, Willie, it's a way of life with Willie. Willie smokes just a boatload of pot every day. He never forgets, he never, misses a note. He never forgets a lyric. He's always right, punctually he's there. He does the shows, which is remarkable. And as for me, it's harder for me to get up here and talk to you than it is for most entertainers or artists. And maybe it's kind of an intimate crowd, I can share this with you, but I was molested by a rodeo clown when I was a young child. All right, I was 27 years old. Let's get onto the pot thing. I only smoke pot when I'm with Willie. That's the only time, and I do it out of Texas etiquette. It's just a polite thing to do. The last occasion was February, and I was coming back from Australia, and Willie and I did a show together in Maui. So we're at Willie's house, and I don't smoke the stuff, and then I smoked about 10 of these joints with him, and my facial muscles became paralyzed. I couldn't smile. I could not smile. And I got so high I needed a step ladder to scratch my ass. Right? And so we did the show. Walking out of Willie's house, walking out of his garage in Hawaii, there is a punching bag about 6 feet up in the air. And I swear this is true. Willie, I'm walking on my knuckles, you know. Willie kicks this punching bag real hard with his foot, kind of just, you know, not making a big deal out of it. He just leaps up and kicks the shit out of the thing. And then he tells me, well, you know, I'm a black belt. You know, the man's 82 years old. I mean, this is remarkable. So he could be a poster boy for pot. And we discussed this. You know, I've learned so much in this past campaign that the #1 hemp-producing country in the world, I think most of you know who that is in this group. Yes?
China.
What is it?
China.
China is great. Well, actually, China is the #1 hemp-producing country in the world. Now, do you know who their biggest customer is? No, it's Willie Nelson. It is us, of course it's us. So I didn't win this last campaign. The crowd picked Barabbas, okay? They said, kill Jesus, free Barabbas. That's what they usually do. That's how Rick Perry got to be governor. They picked Barabbas quite often. And so the people have spoken, the bastards. And 1% of the people voted in this last runoff, and we lost by a couple points. I'm absolutely convinced that people are creatures of narrow habit, and people that don't vote in the Democratic primary, like me, I don't vote in primaries usually, and runoffs and crap like that. Those people are not going to do that. You're not going to get libertarians and independents to cross, but you would have got them in November. That would have been a real referendum. I'm just so impressed with Colorado, which is a little bitty pissant state. Whatever they make, every week they turn around and say, hell, here's another 116 million we didn't realize we were going to get. Folks, multiply it by 700. You got an idea what Texas might get. Right now, 76% of straight doctors, I don't know if they're gay or if they're not, most gay. 76% want to prescribe pot. The reason is very simple. Again, I'm not a pot smoker, really. I mean, so I'm saying that Texas is 49th in education. I'm the only candidate, or I was the only candidate, who even mentioned pot or hemp. Because that's how we pay for it. That's how you fund it. Wendy Davis, barely mentioned it. Greg Abbott, of course, we know where he stands on it. Now, in 2006, when I ran for governor as an independent, I was the only candidate that we know of in America who endorsed gay marriage in 2006. That was when Hillary and Obama were against it. Today, what, 8 years later, is it? Everybody. Ted Cruz is for it, for Christ's sake. The whole world is for it. And I am on record in 2006 as saying they have every right to be just as miserable as the rest of us. Let me just very quickly, there's no point that this, you folks know at least as much as I do about this, but medicinal marijuana, the fact that we have arguably the finest cancer hospital in the world, MD Anderson, with no medicinal marijuana program is absolutely shameful. And Colorado is showing us the proof. Right? To have MS and to wake up paralyzed, wake up blind, wake up, you know, you never know what's going to happen with that disease. Pot seems to ameliorate that situation. Epilepsy, everybody knows, it's a famous thing with a little 5-year-old kid. But to cut seizures, life-threatening seizures on a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old with one little drop of liquid pot, cut it from 100 a day to 1. We should be all over this. We're not. Colorado is and Israel is. America is not. In Israel today, they're giving pot to autistic children. They're giving it to Alzheimer's people. I don't mean a few of them. I mean in big clinics and kibbutzes and what do you call those places where people live? Retirement centers, you know. And major hospitals all over Israel are giving it to patients because it makes you feel human after chemo. Chemo kills more. Everybody knows this shit. Why am I telling you this? Chemo kills more people than the disease. According to Lance Armstrong, who everybody hates, you know, a couple of years ago everybody loved Lance. Lance had a good point. He said the biggest enemy we'll ever face is cancer. 1 in 3 of us is going to have it affect our life very strongly. And you die because you can't sleep for 6 months, you can't eat. You're dizzy and nauseous the whole time, your immune systems go down, and you die. And that is mostly chemo. And pot can treat all that. I'm not, you know, again, I'm not a long-haired hippie telling you, hey, try some pot, it'll fix whatever's wrong with you. Like some alcoholic will say, have a drink, you'll be fine. That's not the case. The case is that the stuff seems to cure these diseases, and Parkinson's is another one. It makes these people, it makes their lives really bearable, more than bearable. So Colorado has become this great healing sanctuary, and people are coming from all over the country. And Texas, meanwhile. Texas is we're going to get it right. We always get it right after we try everything else. That's what we do in Texas. And right now I look at those candidates, and boy, they are not embracing the future. So it's really up to us to decide, do we want to be seceders or do we want to be leaders? Because if Texas legalizes, it is the end of the war on drugs. And that, if you don't talk to current law enforcement, and I've talked to all kinds of law enforcement, I haven't met one yet who is not for legalization. They have their reasons, you know, which is they're damn tired of some guy having a few drinks and beating up his wife. And they've got to deal with it. And they've never had a case of a guy smoking a few joints and beating up his wife. Because the guy forgets to beat up his wife. He beats up a bag of Doritos. What I thought is we will keep this brief because yesterday was D-Day. I wanted to read to you a short chapter from the book Heroes of a Texas Childhood. 23 heroes of mine when I was a kid. And I'll be over there where Steve is afterwards, and of course the book and the CDs are $20, $20, $20. But today we're going to have the Israeli discount, okay? If you buy multiple items, we knock $10 off every time you do. So you could buy 3 CDs and 1 book. It's normally $80, but it would only be $50. And of course, I will sign anything but bad legislation.
Yeah.
So in honor of D-Day, let me just say that young people today, I don't know how many people in this room know who Audie Murphy is. Most of you do. Most decorated soldier in World War II. But I talked to a whole group of college kids. Absolutely none of them knew if he was a hip-hop artist or a basketball player. Had no clue. They did not know upon whose shoulders they stood. So I would just say that your heroes are very important. Sir, if I wanted to interview you and find out who you really were, you know, the fastest way is to ask you who your heroes were. And if you told me Donald Trump, Bill Gates, and Justin Bieber, I would know what I need to know, you know? And I'm not suggesting that they are, yes. So here are 23 of mine, and I think inspiration is real important. I think what you guys are doing and what I'm trying to do, the main heartbreak for me is that the Ag Commissioner's Office has $700 million that you can start pilot projects and grants with new crops and technologies. We could have broken hemp big time in Texas. And then when Greg Abbott comes legally to try to shut it down, you have your phalanx of lawyers, your Dick DeGuerins and all the great lawyers of Texas ready, and we get it out of the legislature, because we shouldn't look to the legislators. Those guys are midgets. Don't look to them for leadership or advice. There's a few good ones that have been banging their head against the wall for decades to try to get pot through or hemp through, with no luck. So we get it into the courts, and it will jumpstart it. It will move fast. How we're going to do that now, we will see. But certainly I'm glad to be done with politics. My definition still holds of politics. Poly means more than one, and ticks are blood-sucking parasites. This chapter is about my dad, who died 12 years ago. I've kept it in the present tense, and I think you should keep everybody you love in the present tense as long as you possibly can. It's called Tom Friedman, the Navigator. Because I'm the oldest living Jew in Texas who doesn't own real estate, and given my status in general as a colorful character, there are those who profess to be surprised that I ever indeed had a father or a mother. I assure you, I had both. For many years, my parents owned and directed Echo Hill Ranch, a summer camp near Kerrville where I grew up, or maybe just got older. I remember my dad, Tom Friedman, talking to all the campers on Father's Day in the dining hall after lunch. Each summer, he'd say essentially the same words. For those of you who are lucky enough to have a father, now's the time to remember him and let him know that you love him. Write a letter home today. Many years have passed since I last heard Tom's message to the campers, but love, I suppose, has no sell-by date. When my father was a young boy, growing up in the Chicago of the late 20s, his first job was working for a Polish peddler. The man had a horse and cart that was loaded up with fruits and vegetables, and Tom sat on the very top. Through the streets and alleys of the old west side they'd go, with the peddler crying his wares in at least 5 languages, and my father running the purchases up to the housewives who lived on the top floors of the tenement buildings. There were trolley cars then, clotheslines strung across the city alleys like medieval banners. My father still remembers the word the peddler seemed to cry out more than any other. The word was kartoffel. It is Polish for potato. In November 1944, my mother, Minnie, gave birth to me in a manger somewhere on the south side of Chicago. I lived there 1 year, couldn't find work, and moved to Texas, where I haven't worked since. And all this time, my father was far away, fighting for his country and his wife and a baby boy he might never see. Tom was a navigator in World War II, flying a heavy bomber for the 8th Air Force, the old B-24, also known as the Liberator, which in time it was. Tom's plane was called the I've Had It. He flew 35 successful missions over Germany, the last occurring on November 9th, 1944, 2 days after he'd learned that he was a brand new father. As the navigator, the responsibility fell to him to bring the 10-man crew back safely. In retrospect, it's not terribly surprising that fate and the powers that be had selected Tom to be the navigator. He was the only one aboard the I've Had It who possessed a college degree. He was also the oldest man on the plane. He was 23 years old. After each successful mission, it was the custom to paint a small bomb on the side of the plane. In the rare instance of shooting down an enemy plane, a swastika was painted. When one incoming crew, however, accidentally hit a British runway maintenance worker, a small teacup was painted on the side of the plane, practically engendering an international incident. Tom was a hero in what he still refers to as the last good war. For his efforts, he received the Distinguished Flying Cross and the Air Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters and the heartfelt gratitude of the crew. Yet the commanding officer's first words to Tom and his young compatriots had not been wrong. The CO told them, "Look at the man on their left and look at the man on their right. When you return," he'd said, "they will not be here." This dire prophecy proved to be correct. The mighty 8th suffered a grievous attrition rate during the height of the war. Like most true war heroes, Tom rarely talks about the war. My sister, Marcy, once saw Tom sitting alone in a darkened room and asked, "Is everything all right, Father?" To this, Tom replied, "The last time everything was all right was August 14th, 1945. That was the day Japan surrendered." On a recent trip to O'Hare Airport in Chicago, I commandeered a limo and drove through the area where Tom had grown up. There were slums and suburbs and Starbucks, but the trolley cars and the clotheslines and the peddler with his horse and cart were gone. "Kartoffel," I said to the limo driver, but he just looked straight ahead. Either he wasn't Polish or he didn't want any potatoes. Today, Tom lives in Austin with his new wife, Edith Kruger, and his 2 dogs, Sam and Perky. He has 3 children and 3 grandchildren. He eats lunch at the Frisco, still plays tennis with his old pals. He did not, as he contends, teach me everything I know. Only almost everything. He taught me tennis. He taught me chess. He taught me how to belch. He taught me to always stand up for the underdog. He taught me the importance of treating children like adults and adults like children. He's a significant American because by his example, his spirit, and his unseen hand, he's guided children of all ages safely through the winding, often torturous courses of their lives. One of them was me. Tom's war is long over. Indeed, the whole era seems gone, like the crews who never came home, lost forever among the salt shaker stars. And yet, when the future may look its darkest, there sometimes occurs an oddly comforting moment when, with awkward grace, the shadow of a silver plane flies inexplicably close to my heart. One more mission for the Navigator. I thank you kindly.